G'day, legends. I hope that you're having a fantastic day and an even better weekend. Now, I know a lot of you are asking, why isn't Aussie talking about US politics? And I've got two answers for that. Firstly, US politics affects Australia and the Western world, sometimes even more so than our own. And the US is so powerful that ripple effect of the US administration can be felt around the world, especially in allied countries. And secondly, I'm not going to be talking about ins and outs of this. I want to talk about it purely on a military sense when talking about Ukraine, because that is where then I specialise. So what we're going to be going over today is what happens if the US was to decrease aid. What is Putin saying on the other side? Who is looking like they're going to win this? What changes is that going to have? And what was said during the debate? So, look, one of the things I look at, because I don't just follow US politics just everyday ins and outs, is I look at betting websites. Now, firstly, betting is a horrible thing. Don't do it. But bloggers, media, they sell ads. So they are interested in headlines and clicks. Betting websites are interested in primarily, well, same, but in making money and being correct on lowering the odds. So it's more putting the money where their mouth is. And only a couple of days ago, I put up a video talking about where we'll see bloggers and media pushing their own narratives to try and influence this too. And Donald Trump was at $1.72 and Biden was $2.50. So Trump was the favourite, but only slightly. Now, straight after this then debate has occurred, Trump is at $1.57, so he's dropped down. And Biden has lifted to $4.50. So a change in the odds, further putting Trump as the favourite to win. Now, one of the big things I think has affected Biden's campaign the most is his response to what Israel is doing inside Gaza. I think he shot himself in the foot. From an outside looking in, if I look at the voters of which the Biden administration is appealing to, say young liberal people, maybe university students, and then I look at where they are sitting and their politics around the Gaza issue, I think a lot of his voters are being turned away. But that's just then my 2 cents. So let's have a look then at what has been said by former President Trump at then the debate.
Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him, I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened.
So this is appealing to a lot of people who are questioning just the amount of billions of dollars that are being sent to fund a war. Whether that is being kept in America or going into other things doesn't matter to a lot of people. What matters is that we know things are getting more expensive and we're sending a lot of money away. Now, yes, we can explain this and we can talk about it, but you remember that we're in a bit of a vacuum here looking with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass through things. The average person might go, yeah, why am I paying so much on fuel? Why am I paying so much on groceries? That is the average person's, rightfully, the average person's major concerns.
I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
So this is something we've heard Trump say before. Trump has said before that he will have the war settled in 24 hours, and he has said that he'll have it settled as still president-elect, that the war will be over. Now, let's go over if this was to happen, what would happen? If the war's going to end, what would change on this? Now, what we are presuming a couple of things here. The election's still a while off, but presuming that Trump is the favourite at the moment, and I've shown you by the odds, what may we see change? Well, we know that if Trump gets in, one of the things that may happen, if you wanted to freeze this conflict today, you're not changing the border back to the 1991 border. There's going to have to be a ceasefire then along where the front line is sitting. And this is no difference to what we got 2 days ago from advisors to Trump. A ceasefire would freeze the front lines in their current position. So this is the current position today. What we may see is if it continues to look like Trump is going to win, well, however much Ukraine or Russia then have at that point, by that is where it may freeze. So what we potentially may see is Ukraine and Russia pour everything they have into trying to, on Ukraine's case, trying to liberate and reclaim ground, and in Russia's case, trying to then take more ground and occupy more ground, because that's where the front line is going to sit. So we may see, if it keeps trending this way, we may see a hell of a lot of really hard pushing, sort of all out to try and get bits and pieces before that then freezes. But we are assuming a few things here. Firstly, we are assuming that Putin is actually interested in freezing the war along those lines. And we're also not taking into account just how powerful these defense companies that are making tens of billions of dollars off this war are in political decisions. Now, we have said here that 2 days ago as well, at the same time, these advisors said the plan would entail additional warnings to Russia that the US would increase its military support to Ukraine if it refused the terms of ceasefire. So if Trump gets in and Russia doesn't stop, then the US will increase more military support. And this, of course, is to try and persuade Russia to agree to these terms. And relating to this, Zelensky in June has said, there will be many such conditions depending on how strong Russia is at the moment. Therefore, ceasefire is a trap. And this is something we've spoken about over then the peace conference and other things, is where Ukraine's 10-point peace plan relies purely on military victories, 1991 borders. And the Kremlin is pushing back on that, saying that this, if you want peace now, it doesn't take into the realities on the ground and the initiative that Russia currently has on then the front line. And to speak to this, I'll say it is likely that Russia will actually have more negotiating power if it comes to the negotiating table. Why is this? Well, of course, they occupy this amount of land in Ukraine. So what they may be able to do in negotiations is trade back blocks of land for then political rules against Ukraine. Okay, we'll give you this oblast, we'll give you this area, but you don't join NATO and it's written down, or we'll give you this and it's neutral. So that is one of the things I see that could be in here. And if the US does reduce funding or cut funding to Ukraine, Ukraine cannot continue the war. Zelensky has said this then himself, this in an interview when the US Congress had the aid stuck. If they do not approve the aid it's currently considering, which is some $60 billion, you said if it doesn't move forward, Ukraine will lose the war. Zelensky said, I can tell you, frankly, without the support, we will have no chance of winning. Now, in line with the frontline movements we may see over the next few months, I think we'll see a lot of political agreements made too. I think that the Biden administration, as well as the European Union, will put through more long-term binding security guarantees and economic guarantees for Ukraine, that these will still be in effect regardless of the political outcome in America. So one of the things I'll say on this, and this is just something to be aware of, you're going to see a lot of bloggers from Twitter to YouTube to the mainstream media trying to discredit both Trump and Biden. And you need to be aware of this and just be cognizant when someone is pushing their own agenda and when they're reporting on something happening. And I think we'll see a huge campaign, particularly to discredit then Trump. And something worth mentioning is a large amount of people, and people who are voting, care more about the war ending, stopping the bloodshed, cheaper fuel, cheaper goods, cheaper cost of living. They care more about this than the return of Ukraine's 1991 border and Ukraine's entry into NATO. Now, some people see this as unacceptable. Some people see it as acceptable. And like I said in the beginning, we are in a bit of a vacuum here because we report on something very specific. But it's just worth noting that the average person cares about very average things, which is great. We care about one very specific thing that we look at and how this relates, not every little thing that will affect someone who's voting then in that booth. So I think it will be interesting, but I think we will see if it continues down this path that it looks like there may be a Trump administration victory, as it does look today. I think we will see a lot of frontline pushing to try and gain territory, to try and gain that leverage if then it is frozen along a border and what trades could occur from there. Anyway, legends, I hope that you're having a great day and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.